What if I told you that the average American spends 40 years saving for a retirement that only lasts about 8,000 good days? Not 8,000 years, not 8,000 months, 8,000 days. And that's if you're one of the lucky ones. Here's the part that'll really mess you up. Most people spend those days doing the exact same thing they did before retirement. Watching TV, scrolling their phone, and arguing with strangers on Facebook about gas prices. Today, we're doing the math nobody wants to do. We're talking about why retirement is way shorter than you think, while your go-go years have an expiration date like a gallon of milk, and how to squeeze every last drop of joy out of the time you've actually got. Stick around to the end, because I'm going to give you a simple framework. I call it the regret-proof portfolio that'll change how you think about every single dollar you save from this point forward. Let's get into it. All right. Today's topic is a little different. We're not talking about index funds. We're not talking about Roth conversions. We're talking about the thing all of that money is actually for. Because here's the uncomfortable truth I've learned after making videos about retirement. Most people are world-class at saving for retirement and absolutely terrible at actually retiring. They treat retirement like a finish line. And it's not a finish line, folks. It's a countdown timer. And the clock starts the second you walk out of that office with your sad little cardboard box and a sheet cake that says, "Happy Retirement, Greg," even though your name is Craig, because Susan in HR ordered the wrong cake. Section 1. The math nobody wants to do. Let's start with the numbers. The average American retires around 62 to 64. Life expectancy, if you make it to 65, roughly 84 for men, 86 or 87 for women. So on paper, you've got about 20 to 22 years of retirement. 20 years, that sounds like a lot, right? That's a whole other adulthood. Except it's not, and here's why. Researchers who study aging talk about something called health span versus lifespan. Lifespan is how long you're alive. Health span is how long you're alive and healthy enough to actually do stuff. And the gap between those two numbers is where retirement dreams go to die. For a lot of Americans, health span starts fraying somewhere in the mid to late 70s. Knees go, hips go, energy goes. Suddenly that dream trip to hike the Swiss Alps becomes a dream trip to hike the buffet line at the Golden Corral. Nothing against Golden Corral. Their chocolate fountain is a national treasure. But you get my point. So let's do the real math. You retire at 63. Your body cooperates fully until, let's say, 76 or 77 if you take care of yourself. That's 13 to 14 years of prime retirement. Call it roughly 5,000 days of full-throttle living and maybe 8,000 days total, where you're still in decent shape. Now think about how you spend a normal day. Sleep eats a third of it. Errands, chores, doctor appointments eat more. The actual living part of each day? A few golden hours. You didn't save for 40 years to fund an infinite vacation. You saved for 40 years to fund a window, a beautiful, precious, rapidly closing window. And most people don't figure that out until the window's halfway shut. Section 2. The 3 phases of retirement. Financial planners often divide retirement into 3 distinct phases, and the names themselves reveal a lot about what to expect. We've covered these phases in detail in another video, but here's a quick recap to refresh your memory. Phase 1, the go-go years. This is roughly your early 60s to mid-70s. You've got money, you've got health, you've got time. This is when you take the trips, chase the grandkids, learn to sail, embarrass yourself at pickleball. This is the main event. This is what the whole 40-year grind was for. Phase 2, the slow-go years. Mid-70s to mid-80s, give or take. You're still living, but the throttle eases back. The international trips become domestic trips. The domestic trips become day trips. The day trips become, let's just watch the trip on YouTube. You spend less, not because you're being frugal, because you physically don't want to do as much. Phase 3, the no-go years. I don't need to explain this one. Spending shifts from fun to healthcare. The cruise budget becomes the copay budget.
Now, here's the kicker, and this is backed by actual retirement spending data. Retiree spending generally declines with age. Economists call it the retirement spending smile. You spend a lot early, less in the middle, and then more at the end. But that late-stage spending is mostly medical. So why does this matter? Because most retirement planning assumes you'll spend the same amount every single year for 30 years. And that assumption causes people to do something tragic. They underspend in their go-go years, the only years they can actually use the money, to protect a slow-go and no-go future where they won't want to spend it anyway. Translation, people skip the Italy at 65 to afford a nicer recliner at 85. Section 3. The someday trap. Let me tell you about the most expensive word in the English language. It's not yacht. It's not divorce. It's someday. Someday we'll take that trip. Someday I'll learn guitar. Someday I'll finally visit my brother in Portland. Here's the problem with someday. It's not on the calendar. Monday's on the calendar. Tax day's on the calendar. Someday is a mythological creature like Bigfoot or a fairly priced house. And I see this pattern constantly with retirees. They spent 40 years in delayed gratification mode. Save, don't spend. Sacrifice now, enjoy later. And that mindset served them well. It's why they have a nest egg at all. Round of applause. But then retirement arrives and they can't flip the switch. The habit of not spending is so deep that spending actually feels painful. Researchers have found that many retirees live off less than their portfolios could safely support, and plenty of them die with more money than they retired with. Which means all those skipped dinners, skipped trips, skipped experiences, they weren't sacrifices for the future, they were just skipped. Gone, donated to the estate of someday, which, spoiler alert, pays out to your kids who will use it on a kitchen renovation and a boat they'll use twice. Look, leaving money to your kids is beautiful. I'm all for it. But here's a wild idea. Give some of it while you're alive, when they're 35 and drowning in daycare costs, instead of when they're 60 and already fine. And keep some of it for you, the person who actually earned it. All right. Let's talk about the best performing asset class you've never heard of. It's not NVIDIA, it's memories. There's a concept popularized by the book Die with Zero by Bill Perkins called the memory dividend. And as an investing nerd, I love this framing. Here's how it works. When you spend money on an experience, a trip, a concert, a fishing weekend with your kid, you don't just get the experience once, you get to relive it every time you remember it. Tell the story, look at the photo. Every retelling is a little dividend payment. And unlike your bond fund, the memory dividend compounds for the rest of your life. Take the trip at 65 and you might collect dividends on that memory for 20 years. Take it at 85, if you can take it at all, and the compounding window is tiny. This is why the timing of spending matters just as much as the amount. $1 spent on an experience in your go-go years is objectively worth more than the same dollar spent later, because it has more years to pay you back in joy. In investing, we call this time in the market. Turns out the same rule applies to living. Time in the memories beats timing the memories. And by the way, the experiences don't have to be expensive. Some of the highest yielding memories cost almost nothing. Teaching your granddaughter to fish, a road trip with your college buddy, standing in your backyard at 6 a.m. with a cup of coffee, realizing you never have to attend another meeting titled Quick Sync for the rest of your life. That last one, priceless and free. Mostly the coffee.
So how do you actually spend wisely? Great question, because I am not telling you to YOLO your nest egg. Running out of money in your 80s is a genuine catastrophe, and the fear is legitimate. The goal isn't reckless spending. The goal is intentional spending. Here's the framework. Number 1, front load the fun. On purpose, on paper. Instead of a flat withdrawal rate for 30 years, plan for a spending curve that matches reality. Budget more for travel and experiences in your first 10 to 12 years of retirement and consciously plan for it to taper. Some planners literally build a go-go budget as a separate line item. When it's in the plan, spending it stops feeling like cheating. Number 2, cover the boring stuff with boring money. Figure out your essential expenses, housing, food, insurance, healthcare, and try to cover as much of that as possible with guaranteed or stable income, Social Security, pensions if you're lucky enough to have one, maybe an annuity if it fits your situation. When your survival is covered no matter what the market does, spending the rest gets a whole lot less scary. Your fun money and your fear money should never share a bank account, emotionally speaking. Number 3, Buy back your health like it's a dividend stock. The single best investment in a longer go-go phase isn't financial, it's physical. Strength training, walking, sleep, staying social. Every year you extend your health span is another year of prime retirement you just manufactured out of thin air. Show me another asset with that return. Number 4, schedule the somedays. Make a list of the 10 things you keep saying you'll do. Now put actual dates on them. Not spring, probably. Dates. A someday with a date becomes a plan. A someday without a date becomes a regret with better marketing. Number 5, spend on people, not just things. Decades of happiness research keeps landing on the same finding. Relationships are the strongest predictor of a happy later life. The famous Harvard study that followed people for over 80 years found that the quality of your relationships beats money, fame, and cholesterol as a predictor of long-term happiness. So, when in doubt, spend money on things that put you in a room with people you love. The fishing trip with your brother beats the slightly newer truck. Every time. Section 6, the regret-proof portfolio. All right, I promised you a framework at the top of the video. Here it is. I call it the regret-proof portfolio. Palliative care workers, people who sit with folks in their final weeks, have written about the most common regrets of the dying. You know what tops the list over and over? I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. I wish I'd let myself be happier. Notice anything? Not one person says, I wish my portfolio had a lower expense ratio. Nobody's final words are, should have rebalanced quarterly. Nobody whispered, Vanguard, with their dying breath. Although, honestly, respect if you do. So, here's the exercise. Imagine your own last day, way out in the future. Then look back and ask what would that version of me wish I had bought, done, seen, said, and shared. That list is your real portfolio. The money is just the fuel. Every financial decision you make in retirement should pass through one filter. Does this move assets from my bank account into my regret-proof portfolio? A trip with your grandkids? That's a buy. A third streaming subscription you watch out of boredom? That's a sell, my friend. Your net worth is what you have. Your regret-proof portfolio is what you keep. Choose your allocations accordingly. There's one final shift that separates people who merely have a retirement from people who genuinely live one. For most of your working life, success was easy to measure. Bigger paycheck, bigger portfolio, bigger house, bigger 401k. Every year, the scoreboard went up. But retirement quietly changes the rules. You're no longer trying to maximize your wealth, you're trying to maximize your remaining life. That's a completely different game. Think about it. If you're 67 years old with enough money to comfortably support yourself, adding another $100,000 to your estate may not change your happiness very much. But spending 2 unforgettable weeks with your family, finally learning to paint, visiting the place you've dreamed about since you were 25, those things can change the way you remember an entire decade. In other words, the return on your time becomes far more valuable than the return on your investments. I'm not saying money stops mattering. It absolutely does. Financial security buys freedom, choices, and peace of mind. But once you've reached enough, every extra dollar has to compete with something much scarcer. Time. Every birthday is a withdrawal. Every season is one you never get back. That's why the best retirees I know don't ask, can I afford this? Their first question is, if not now, when? Because eventually, later stops being an option. And that's the most important investment lesson retirement has to teach you. Retirement isn't the end of the race. It's the whole reason you ran it. And it's shorter than the brochure promised. Not 30 endless years, but a golden window of maybe 10 to 15 truly great ones. 5,000-ish prime days. That's not a reason to panic, that's a reason to focus. Because here's the beautiful flip side. When you truly accept that the window is short, every day inside it gets more valuable. The morning coffee tastes better. The trip gets booked instead of discussed. The phone call to your old friend actually happens. You spent 40 years being a great saver. Now comes the harder job, the graduation level skill, becoming a great spender. Not a wasteful one, a wise one. Someone who converts dollars into days that mattered. So here's your homework, and I'm serious about this. This week, do one thing from your someday list. Just one. Book the flight, call the friend, sign up for the class, then come back and tell me about it in the comments. If this video gave you something to look forward to, share it with someone who's approaching retirement or already in it. You might just buy them a few thousand better days. That's a pretty good return on a link. Like and subscribe if you haven't, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. Until then, save smart, spend wiser, and make every single day count. Because the market will always reopen tomorrow. But your go-go years, those close for good.